Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Not Your Average Josh back here again for another movie review. And today I am reviewing the new upcoming movie, Sisu. Directed and written by Jalmari Helander. I got to see this at an early screening, one of the Regal Mystery movie nights that they had. But before I get into my movie review, I do want to say, hit that like button and leave a comment. If this is your first time watching any of my videos, hit that subscribe button as well. Or if you're a returning viewer, any support for this channel is very much appreciated. You can also follow me on TikTok and add me on Snapchat, where I will post content similar to this. But for the most part, my content will be here on this YouTube channel, Not Your Average Josh. So again, I appreciate all the support, but let's get into this review of Sisu. The story of Sisu is when an ex-soldier who discovers gold in the Lapland wilderness tries to take the loot into the city. Nazi soldiers, led by the brutal SS officer, battle him. That description pretty much sums it all up, and it was pretty glorious, I will say, in terms of the action and the violence in this movie. If you saw the trailer for this movie at all, I think you knew what you were expecting. They showed a pretty good amount in the trailer. I was pretty surprised. Like, they show foots flying and fucking body parts, explosions and shit. It looked like a bloody good time, and that it was in this movie. As I mentioned, I got to see this at an early screening, and I was very excited. It was the Regal Mystery Movie Night. I did not know it was going to be playing. I was very interested and kind of building a pretty good amount of anticipation for this movie. I had never heard of the director. I believe in the trailer it said the executive producers of John Wick. So just seeing that, I was like, okay, I kind of know the vibe I'm getting into with this. And there is a lot of comparisons to be made with the John Wick franchise with this. There's a man going against pretty much an army of motherfuckers. There's a dog involved, a lot of blood, and it's really much like the first John Wick movie, a straightforward movie here of a guy who, as I mentioned in the description, he finds gold at the beginning of this movie. I really did love how they incorporated World War II into this movie. The idea of the end of the war approaching and the Nazis really finding out and coming to the realization that they're going to lose the war and just start going through villages, fucking people up, murdering innocent people, doing horrible, atrocious things. And you have this one man who, I think he realizes at the end of the war, seems like he's just a citizen that's in Finland that just got caught into this war, and he is a gold miner, and he ends up finding gold, but the only thing is he has to go basically travel on foot or by horse through a bunch of Nazis, try and hide the fact that he has gold. Basically, chaos ensues, and he ends up having to kill a whole bunch of guys. That's basically what this movie is, and if you're into that, I think you're gonna have a great time with this, because I really enjoyed myself throughout this whole movie. There was plenty of just gnarly, like, oh my god, what the hell's going on moments with just the violence in this. Some of the creative kills this is definitely one you definitely want to go with your friends and just have a great time with. I'm sure the crowd reactions are going to be pretty awesome for this. The crowd was definitely in a pretty consistent murmur several times in this movie with just everything that goes on. The main actor in this movie, I do not know him, I did not see him in anything else. Jorma Tomila as Atami Korpi, this former general from Finland, who is just a badass guy. And I will say there is going to be a turning point in this movie where certain people are going to fall off and maybe not enjoy it as much, whereas other people, it's going to send them to a takeoff and they're going to really enjoy it much more. And that is the fantasy aspect with this movie. They do border that line of realistic badass dude to immortal in this movie, and I think they even go over the line at times. There is a few moments in this movie where you're like, okay, how is this guy not dying right now? Much like the John Wick movies, there is a point where you just either accept that this is going into a different realm than just a typical war film that is going on here. And again, it's just going to be all on the audience member, your personal preference, how you feel about maybe the way the tone of the movie is. And I thought with the tone of the movie, it felt like it was appropriate for me. And honestly, I just bought in. I know other people might not be able to do that. And again, I think that's going to be the huge thing in this, where really will show where your enjoyment level is by the time you get to the end of this movie. Because there is a level, definitely a suspension of disbelief that you have to have with just certain moments in this where you're like, yeah, if this guy's human, this motherfucker will be dead at this point. But it's just so badass what's going on. I was just fully enjoying it, and again, I just bought into that. The main nemesis of our protagonist in this is Axel Hennie as the SS officer, the main Nazi officer that is following and trying to track down our protagonist in this, as they find out that he has gold, and that's really the main reason why they're going after him. And I thought there was enough information there, and it felt pretty reasonable why they were going after him. You had the combination of the fact the war was ending, and they knew if they went back to where they were being ordered to go to, that they're probably going to be hung anyway because they lost the war. So just, well, why don't we just go after this guy, try and get this gold, and then try and get the fuck out of here like a bunch of other Nazis did in real life after World War II, escaping and going to other countries with what money they had. And really all the Nazi officers here were just the classic, just all bad guy motherfuckers. That makes sense. Like, I'm not looking for a movie where like, well, let's try and sympathize with these Nazi guys who are going through killing motherfuckers in villages. Honestly, for me, it was fine they did that. The moment for me where I thought they could use a little more realism in this movie, because you are having this fantasy story take place at a certain extent. It turns into this big action thriller fantasy, but it is taking place within a nonfiction event that happened. So for me, there was, with the language in this movie, there's literally, for me, and maybe someone else can catch maybe more, there was only a couple lines in this movie that was non-English. And it just felt kind of strange to me. You have all these Nazi officers, German guys, in Finland, like we're not in America, and they're all speaking English. Yes, I guess it could have happened, and maybe I just don't know much about this time and how much English was used within the officers. But you had the German officers talking to each other and literally speaking English the whole time, and it just felt very just out of place, even within this fantasy movie. Just felt like within this, they should have been talking more in German or in just another language, in Finnish. It just felt a little bit too much for me in the terms of not being realistic there. Like, I kind of wanted that there. It did take me out of it at times in this movie. Again, as much as this movie is a fantasy at heart, with it taking place with this nonfiction event that happened, the language should have been less with the English. It maybe would have felt more real in terms of the place that they're at. But that is really my one qualm with anything like that, just because I did, for the most part, buy into the fantasy with this. And again, I just had a really fun blast with this movie. I thought the violence, I just thoroughly enjoyed. It's going to be awesome if you're in for that. You're going to have a blast with this movie. You even have an awesome moment with these women that have been captured by the Nazis. It's a real glorious moment. I'm not going to spoil it. That takes place that I thought didn't feel pushed. I know that people that may watch this may be like, oh, wow, the woke agenda again. They have to have the women do something awesome. It didn't feel like that for me, at least. But it is an awesome moment. These women that are captured finally get to do some cool ass shit in this movie. And just overall, the main dude, Norma Tamila, he is just so good in this movie. The action, the violence, it felt like a war film at heart. I felt a very strong Quentin Tarantino relatability with this movie. The movie was split up into chapters, and the way the font was put on the screen, it would have the chapter and the title of the chapter. It felt so much like something Quentin Tarantino would do. That mixed with the violence in this movie and the style with which the violence was used, sometimes in a very funny, crazy way, much like in a Quentin Tarantino movie. Django Unchained, I think of that as well. Very much comparison with this movie in a way. The violence, and then one man trying to take down a bunch of other guys. And there would just be moments in this movie where it'd be bloody ass moments that were fun but also horrifying. And when you can really get a nice balance and a good striking punch with that, again, just had so much of that Tarantino vibes for me. But yeah, I just really enjoyed this movie a lot overall. Not a perfect movie. There are a few things along the way where I'm like, okay, don't necessarily agree with that. Might have done something different there. But I thought the tone overall was just very well balanced throughout. The score, the music in this, it was very understated, but very appropriate within each scene. It never felt like it was overdoing the moment or anything like that. You have a dog in this movie, again, like the first John Wick movie. Cute ass dog, and so there's a whole thing with that going into this. I'll be prepared for that as well. Also, a nice runtime, about an hour and 30 minutes. I did feel like it was a little longer than that, but I thought for what the movie did, really the simplistic story that it is, not much nuance to it. I had a good time with this movie. That is my main thoughts. I'm going to give Sisu a 8 out of 10. A bloody good time at the theaters, but what do you guys think? Are you planning on seeing this movie? Did you maybe get out to this Regal Mystery Movie Night, or maybe an early screening for this in general? And if you are going to see it, what are your expectations for it? Leave your thoughts down in the comment. I appreciate any of those, going back and forth with anybody, just discussing movies. Also, hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. And if this is your first time watching any of my videos, hit that subscribe button as well. Or if you're a returning viewer, appreciate any support I get for this channel. You can also follow me on TikTok and add me on Snapchat, where I will post content similar to this. But for the most part, my content will be here on this YouTube channel, Not Your Average Josh. Be looking for more videos very soon, and I will talk to you guys later.